Hello and welcome back to Dan Talks United. United. We get a win. 1-0, Newcastle. Yes, it was a game of two halves, as they say, and it literally was a game of two halves. So, as you know, it was 1-0 versus Newcastle United at Old Trafford. And in the first half, it was a decent first half. I felt that obviously we'll come on to sort of setups and stuff like that, but I think we played decently in the first half. You could even say we played well in the first half. A couple of players there that have performed pretty well in that first half. Dorgu being one of them with the goal, and then the second half were just completely different. Newcastle came out differently. Sort of pressed us and was more intense. But like I say, we'll get into that a bit later on. But the good thing is that we've won a game. We've got 3 points. We're at Old Trafford, and that's what we need. And I keep saying that we need to make Old Trafford a fortress, and that definitely needs to happen. There's been too many times where we've been pegged back by teams like Bournemouth that we're not on form. 4-4, a lot of goals to concede. Nice to score 4 goals, but conceding 4 goals, not the one. And obviously in that last game that we played against Villa at Villa Park, losing 2-1, when they didn't really offer much. So it's a refreshing change to get a win. We need to start going on a run now. And it's nice to get that bit of a Christmas present to get that 3 points. So, as I was saying, getting into it now, Dorgu with that first goal, or with our goal, should I say. Sort of yes, it was a long throw from Dalot, and obviously we've talked about Dalot's long throws. But the long throws come in, I think it got headed by one of the Newcastle defenders, and then the ball sort of looped in the air, and Dorgu is in space, and he sort of watches it the whole time, keeps his eye on the ball, gets his head over the ball, which you always want players to do, and just hits it quite nicely. Now, obviously, we can say that would it have gone in if you had a I shouldn't say that he's not a decent Ramsey's not a decent keeper, but should it have gone in? I don't know, but it was hit well. It was struck well. It was a nice volley off his left foot, off his stronger foot, and I'm definitely not going to take that away from him. And that is a good goal. And obviously, he's had opportunities to score in the past. And obviously, Amorim himself has said he felt that Dorgu was a bit sort of nervous on the ball and not sort of comfortable on the ball. So today, completely different. Like I say, fabulous sort of volley, nice volleyed finish. So quite happy with that. Like I say, just to have a look at or just talk about the half in its full and in the fullness of it is again is set up in a way 4 at the back, which was probably not expected because even Eddie Howe seems to be a little bit of. I don't really like this. I think it's a little bit cheating in a sense where you sort of get in your. Obviously, you can sort of shout instructions onto the pitch. I get that, but it just felt like Ramsdale was sort of pretending to be injured, and then the instructions were getting sent onto the pitch then to try and combat the way that Manchester United had set up. So again, I don't think Eddie Howe was expecting 4 at the back. I don't think many of us was expecting 4 at the back. So sort of counting the defenders and thought, wait a minute, we've got. So when the lineup got announced, I think we've got 5 defenders. So that means we're probably going to play the 3-4-3. Or effectively a 5 at the back because the fact that we've got players missing. But it was quite a surprise to see Dorgu playing so high up as like a winger on the right-hand side. And it looked like we didn't really play with a left winger. We had sort of Cunha sort of tucked in and then Mount sort of helping out in midfield as well. So the only width on the left-hand side was coming from Luke Shaw. So it was not a strange setup, but it was a setup that seemed to catch Newcastle by surprise, but also it was pinning Newcastle back. And it did feel like it was, I'm not saying that there were 5 at the back, but it did feel like Newcastle seemed to be defending in numbers because it's almost like they just didn't know what to do with the setup. And it just makes you feel that if we had our stronger players playing today, it could have been so much different in terms of goal scoring. But anyway, I'm not going to sort of down it too much. We've got the win, and that's the main thing for me. Now, So we'll come on to it anyway, but I did feel like Amarim had some poor substitutions, but we'll talk about that for the second half analysis. So, like I say, we did start off the game pretty well. I think we were at them. I think there was a lot of joy, especially down that right hand side with Dorgu sort of doing a bit of wing play, sort of cutting in. There's quite a few attempts on goal that we had in the first half, and I think we were taking it to Newcastle and showing to be the home team, which that's all you can ask for. I felt we pressed them quite high, I think. Although I don't feel that Sesko particularly had the best game in the world. I think in terms of pressing, I think Mount pressed well. I think Sesko was pressing here and there. I think Dorgu was at them. Ogate was sort of aggressive as well, and that's what you want, especially at home. So I think we, like I say, we did put Newcastle under pressure, and that's what you need to do in these scenarios. You're at home, there's no excuse, and this is all we're asking for the players is to work hard, is to perform to their best, despite the fact that we've got some key players missing. This is what we need from the team. So, if I'm honest as well, I don't think that Newcastle particularly played well in that first half. You could say a lot of it's down to the shock value from us and how we've set up, but also that we were pressing them quite high. We were matching their energy, if not more energy than them, which is very rare to say. And like I say, I think also that sort of four at the back system and having a bit more bodies in midfield and an attack sort of helped us for that first half. So, in terms of chances, like I say, I think Cunha had a couple, Sesko had a couple as well, and probably it might have been second half, but probably should have done better with the chances that he had. But I don't think there was enough sort of balls coming into the box. If I'm going to be fair to Sesko, I don't think there was enough sort of chances coming into the box, to be honest with you. And I think we could have created a bit more. And I think overall, probably the possession stats were probably not in our favour, so we'll have a look at that on FootMob anyway. So we'll quickly have a look at some of the stats. Just have a look at how things sort of panned out to a certain extent. So over here on FootMob, as you can see, so yeah, I mean, by the end of the game, so obviously this is by the end of the game, we had 33% possession. But as I've said before, on the flip side, when we've had the most possession and lost or drawn, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because losing with a load of possession, what's the point? And I always say, unless you're going to make it count, it means nothing. So in this occurrence, we've won the game, we've won 1-0. 33% possession doesn't really mean much when you win the game, so I'm fine with that. And obviously, Newcastle gets 67% possession. Expected goals for them then, sort of very close there because we've got 1.17, they've got 1.18. Total shots, 16 for them, 9 for us. Shots on target, they had 3, we had 3, so very equal there. Big chances created was the same, we just took ours. Although I don't think Dorgu's would have been classed as a big chance, to be honest. And then big chances missed, 1 each. So yeah, so that shows there it counts that wasn't a big chance for Dorgu really, with it being probably a goal that you probably wouldn't expect him to score. So everything else pretty sort of even in that respect. Yeah, so pretty even in that respect. So yeah, like I said, just go into the second half sort of analysis. So this is where I wasn't particularly happy in regards to the second half because Mount's gone off, and I'm not sure why because I've not seen any of the post-match sort of coverage, so I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody knows who's watching. So I'm assuming that Mount was injured, but I can't confirm that. But that was always going to have a bit of an impact on us because, as we all know, Mount's energy, his pressing ability, and I haven't seen the interview yet, but I know he's talking about in his interview, I think it was with Sky, and it must have been really recently, where he's talking about triggers, and obviously he sort of sets that pressing trigger, so he goes and everybody else follows. And I think he's really good at that. He's been good at that since Chelsea. And that's one thing that is brought to Manchester United. He understands Amarim's system really well, and that's going to be and was a big miss for us to have him out. Obviously, I know we've got Fletcher and what have you. However, Mount's obviously with the more experience and the energy, like I say, and just the calmness on the ball, because again, that was something that was definitely missing in the second half, where we completely lost all control when it came to midfield. I remember parts of the second half where the ball never didn't even seem like it went through midfield whatsoever. Just that midfield area just completely vacant. So I felt, though, and I don't know what you guys feel, but I felt that Amarim almost shot himself in the foot, almost caused unnecessary pressure for me, because I don't feel that those substitutions were very good. As much as I don't particularly feel that Sesko was great, I still feel that once Sesko went off, and one of the shockers was when Casemiro went off, because even Casemiro looked shocked and looked flummoxed at that. And I think a lot of the time, especially these modern coaches, they will meticulously plan who's going to come on, who's going to go off, sort of time scales as well. And a lot of the time, especially for players coming back from injury, let's say, they will probably tell the player beforehand, because you can sort of see the difference when a player's coming back from injury. So let's say Martinez a few weeks ago is coming back from injury, comes onto the pitch, plays, let's say 45 minutes or 50 minutes and goes off. You can see he's not dejected because he knows he's going off. It's already pre-planned, and it just didn't feel that that was pre-planned with Casemiro. And I know he missed the Villa game through suspension, but he's fit. He's been playing all the other games. It was just very strange to pull him off that early. And maybe Amarim was seeing it as a tactical thing, but for me, I think that made us worse, because then we lost a lot of control in that midfield area. And obviously, you've got somebody with all that experience, a winner. And I know we've had a lot to say about Casemiro, but he's a winner, and he's got the dark arts, and that's one of the things I like. I call Casemiro just a nutter, because he's got the dark arts. He knows how to slow the game down, take the sting out of the game, and even if it's just that feigning injury here and there, or sort of making a tactical foul here and there, that's the sort of thing you need when you want to try and squeeze the game. Okay, we've come away, and I feel there's parts of it there's a bit of luck there, because Amarim, you've got to give credit to the players, because they have stuck it out to get to that 1-0 win, and especially a clean sheet as well. So, yeah, so just looking at comments there from SJ, good first half, and that's true. The first half was good, as we've mentioned earlier. It's just the second half, and again, that classic saying, game of two halves, and football is a funny game at times. And you're thinking all you want from the team is to come out, compose themselves, try and get the foot on the ball. And sometimes it's just those simple things, because you, as footballers, they can think for themselves. You shouldn't have to be directed by your coach constantly. Don't get me wrong, there's one or two players, and you've probably had it yourselves if you've played football at any level, where there's one or two players that need to be coached from the sidelines. I get that. But you just need to get to a point where you think, right, things are not quite going for us at certain points of the game. Let's slow things down. Let's take the sting out. Let's just pass simple. Let's keep hold of the ball a little bit. And as much as I talk about possession, and the only reason I say possession doesn't count, it only doesn't count for me when the result doesn't go your way. Now, possession's good if you're keeping hold of the ball and stopping the other team from scoring, or you're keeping hold of the ball and then creating chances. Possession's beautiful. But what I mean is that we just need to get to points where we can control the game a bit better. And I think it gets quite chaotic when you're in the second half and you've got that many attacks on you, and you've seen the game yourselves, guys. They were relentless, Newcastle. Now, what's good for us is that I don't feel that Newcastle were at the best, especially when it comes to finishing. Voltemida he didn't feel like he was in the game for me. And I was a little bit worried about him, because I think as much as he's probably 6th or 7th choice maybe when it came to the transfer market, he has been scoring, and he can finish, and he's shown he can finish. And I think we were quite lucky that I think it was Gordon. It was kind of one of those where you can't tell if it was a strike at goal or a cross. It was one of those sort of half and half things in the second half, and he sort of drove the ball across the box. And Voltamida hasn't sort of gambled. And we were talking about this whilst watching the game, that our strikers are very similar, where a chance comes into the box and you want your number 9. Now, obviously, Xerxes can sort of get away with it because he classes himself as a 9.5 or what have you. But we've got Sesko with that out and out number 9, and I think he doesn't gamble enough sometimes. So sometimes the ball's gone into the box. It's like, where are you? And there's times where Cunha's more advanced than he is, and you just think, what's happening here? This is what we've paid all this good money to bring you in, especially with his frame and his size and how tall he is. You just get a leg out there and tap it in. But anyway, Voltamida didn't do it which is worked out really well for us, because again, there's times where all it really needed was like a bit of a just forward thinking, to be on your toes, and he wasn't today, and which is good. Now you can always give some credit to our defenders as well, because I didn't really see it, if I'm honest, and it's one of those things where when you're watching the game, especially when you're watching the game at home, and you all know if you've been to any stadium to watch a match, you do see things a bit differently at the game because you can see more of the pitch, and obviously you're bowing down to Sky Sports cameras and not seeing everything. And obviously Gary Neville, who I don't always like commentating on our game sometimes, he was sort of saying that Heaven was his man of the match, and that's one of them things I'm going to have to watch back just to see. But I think a lot of things that he liked was the fact that he was heading the ball out and he was marshalling his area. His centre back at his age, it's a big shout. So he did well there. You might have thought that Martinez might have played in that central role there, because it needs somebody with experience for me, and that's where we've missed De Ligt and we've missed Slabhead as well, Maguire. But like I say, if Gary Neville's right, then it's one of those things that I need to watch that back in terms of highlights. But my point is, he may have been a massive contributor to Voltamida not playing as well as we've seen in the past. So just have a look at another comments. Yeah. So again, agreeing about very disappointing second half, taking the foot off the gas. And yeah, and then substitutes are at wrong time, and not just wrong time, wrong substitutes for me as well, because it felt like we'd gone a bit negative. And I think the last time he made heavily defensive substitutions, I'm sure we ended up losing the game or at least drawing. And I just think when you're in the lead, and I get it that we were struggling a little bit today, if I'm honest, in terms of that sustained attack. So I think you've got to just remain positive and not make a defensive substitution so early. And I thought it was very early to make those substitutions in that manner. And I think you just got to sort of keep your foot on the necks in a sense and try and carve out a few more chances, because when you're on top, you've got to try and stay on top. And I think when the opposition see that you bring on a couple of defenders or what have you and sort of remove some of your attacking threat, it just gives them confidence. And it says to them that, oh, well, you've conceded, that you've got nothing else to give here, so we're just going to attack. And the attack is a chant. It's an Old Trafford chant for us. So that's what we should be doing. Now, again, appreciate we've got so many players missing. Ahmad and Boomer, real strong attacking threats for us, and we've got them missing. I get it. But to be fair, Dorgu was doing his thing today. It's still surprising me how well he was doing going forward, because I have absolutely dissed him from the last game, saying that he needs to do more going forward. And all you can hope from this is that his confidence has boosted. But again, I can see a few people watching. Please get some comments in as well. Don't let me just talk here. I want to hear what you've got to say as well. It's not just about me. This is a community. I want to hear what you've got to say. Let's interact and see what you've got to say about the game. But like I said, just to keep that going, it's a good win today. 1-0 win against Newcastle. Newcastle are a good team. Thing is, They have been up and down, which I'd say we've been quite up and down ourselves. But it's nice to beat a team, especially a team that they got us. They got a double over us, didn't they, last season, where they've beat us both home and away. I'm sure last season, so it's good to get that win, especially against a team that you probably didn't expect to beat. Now, if you're looking at predictions for the season, well, predictions against the teams you're playing against, and I mean, I can't remember what I would have said for the next sort of 5 games type thing, but where you sort of drawn against Bournemouth, you might think probably should have won there. Everton definitely should have been a win there, and definitely shouldn't have lost 1-0 to a 10-man Everton. Definitely not. So this is the type of game that you probably wouldn't predict to win. At best, you might predict a draw because you're at home, but Newcastle have had our number, and generally speaking, you would say man for man, you'd probably say Newcastle have got the edge in terms of the better team. If both teams are fully strength, yeah, debatable. I think sometimes you think that if we haven't been playing particularly well on paper and actually playing is always a different thing. But anyway, it's good to have that win, like I say. So, just in terms of talking points, then there wasn't a lot of talking points, just that one. Yeah, so just got a comment there from Mazza just to say Dorgu played well. Yeah, I agree. Dorgu played well, and we'll come in on to that in a little bit longer just to talk about that in more depth. But yeah, played really well. Very impressed with him today. Obviously, the jury's always going to still be out for me because it's got to be sustained form or sustained performances for me. So one-off performance, and then that's it, no good. And at Manchester United, we need people that are consistent, and we're used to that. For those of you that are a bit older and remember some of the players we've had over the years where we've had consistency, and unfortunately, we're going to have to go back as far as Fergie to sort of remember players that had consistency playing for this club. And more recently, you know, your Rooney's, for example, your Ronaldo's and that sort of thing, Roy Keane, Scholes, you name it. So that needs to come back for me. But yeah, in terms of talking points, only real thing was Martinez in that second half, I think it was, where the balls come in. It's a bit of quite crowded in the area, and for me, it wasn't a handball. So obviously, it went to VAR, and I think it's the right decision in the end because for me, the ball sort of bounced up. To be honest, he's sort of more concentrating on the defender and sort of shoving that defender, and the ball's just sort of flicked off his arm afterwards. So I think it's gone chest then arm. And normally, if it hits another body part before the arm, you normally get away with those. But again, he didn't know what was going on there. And a lot of times, you can't say there was any intent, not to say that it has to be, but he had no knowledge of that ball when it was there. So for me, it wasn't a handball, and I think it was the right decision. I'm trying to think of the name at ref because you shouldn't really notice the ref. And I'd say, other than recognising him, I didn't say that I'd noticed him. I don't think he had a lot to do with the game, which is always a good thing. And I always think sometimes if you've got sort of refs like Oliver, for example, it always feels like they don't like us. So it's just good that the refs and VAR didn't have much involvement in this game. And it would have been sad to see a penalty there because I don't think we deserved it overall. So, yeah, I mean, if I was to give a word to that second half, I think at times it was a bit embarrassing because it just felt like it was just Newcastle constantly at us, and it felt like we had 10 men behind the ball constantly, and there was just no outlet, and it was really frustrating even when there was times where I think it was Ugarte was trying his best to get the ball out of our half, passing it up to Xerxes, and he was just losing it. And you just think, just show a bit more aggression. Just put your body, and I've talked about this loads of times. If you watch the videos, I've talked about this loads of times where you've got to use your body and manipulate things, manipulate that player, get in control, get in front of that player, protect the ball first, get it under control, and just use your body weight and lean and just get the player away from you. But instead, you're allowing that player to wrap themselves around you or take control of the situation. And I think in those situations, when you're under the cosh, you need someone that's strong to get that ball out and just hold the ball up and allow a bit of support to come your way. Because if you get it to a point where the ball comes up to you and then you want some support, that support might arrive, but then you've lost the ball by then. So then you're back on the defense, and then it's a basketball game or a tennis game, and that's what you don't want. Definitely not. So looking at, we'll have another quick look at FootMob. I just want to see where we are now in the league standings. So just bear with me. Right, there we are. Back over to FootMob. So as always, so obviously we've played a game more than everybody else now because it's the only game. Yeah, I think it was the only game today, Boxing Day. Everybody else is sort of playing tomorrow and probably Sunday. So that has sort of given us a slight advantage. So we have just nudged past Liverpool again. So as you can see there, got Arsenal in first, 39 points. No point even sort of discussing that, to be honest with you, because we're not catching Arsenal and we're not in that sort of title talk. City's there, unfortunately, in second, and then Aston Villa in third and Chelsea in fourth. So sort of that, obviously we've played 18 games and the rest have played 17, and we're sort of level there on that fourth spot. But obviously Chelsea are to play. Just going to quickly see, so it's probably worth now just having a quick look and who's got what. So yeah, again, just looking at comments again. Again, very agree. Very frustrating from SJ there. Come on, guys. There's a few people in the watching this. Put some comments in the chat, and we can have a discussion about things. So tomorrow, City have got Forest. So again, you've got to talk about your rivals, because I always, as you'll probably know, people that are watching this, I normally do like a Monday review of the matches, just to have a talking points after the weekend and after sort of calming down after our game, and just having a nice review. So it's nice just to cover what other teams are doing and how we fare with them. So like I say, don't know what's going to happen here, because Forest are still down there, but they've started to recover slowly, and they are a decent team. Arsenal have got Brighton. I'm trying to think how they normally do against Brighton, to be honest, but they are at home, Arsenal, so possibly there's going to be a win there. And then going further down, Liverpool have got Wolves, so that's where we probably won't hold on to fifth, because I would expect that Liverpool, that are starting to turn a corner, unfortunately. I just want to see the Scousers fail, but they are turning a corner slowly. I expect them to beat the Whipping Boys in Wolves. Sorry, Steve, if you're watching, but Wolves are not very good, are they? And then Chelsea against Villa, that's going to be interesting, because, again, if we're chasing the pack and trying to get into that sort of top 5, top 4, as it stands, Chelsea and Villa are sort of occupying those spots, those spaces, so it's ourselves and Liverpool that'll be sort of chasing that down. I'm sure Newcastle will be there at some point as well, but for now it's definitely ourselves and Liverpool that are trying to squeeze in that area. So it'll be interesting to see how the Chelsea and Villa game finishes. And then Spurs down there playing against Palace. Now, obviously, they've not been great recently. They had a couple of players sent off in that last game that they played. So Palace are a decent team. If they don't play in Europe, then they're generally quite decent. So that'll be interesting as well. So yeah, so like I say, we just need to see how that's going to sort of impact us by the end of the weekend, and hopefully we're still in touching distance or there or thereabouts. And all I ask for, and I'm sure yourselves are the same, is that we stay on the coattails. We try and stay around there and thereabouts when sort of Mbumo and Ahmad and Mazraoui comes back, and then also the players that are injured, because I keep saying in defence in particular anyway, you've got Maguire. Now, I'm not saying I'm a big fan now, but I wasn't a big fan of Maguire. I think when he first came from Leicester, decent, played really well, and they sort of dipped for me. Always felt he was too slow. But put him in the right system, and this is what's going to be interesting, is that it looks like Amorim's trying to change the system a little bit to accommodate the players he has now. So I don't know if this is a long-term thing, or if it's something that is just doing for now because of the players that are missing. But what is interesting is that Maguire, who's been really good for us at times, been good on both boxes, to be fair, good at defensive headers and also scoring. He's probably, and especially when he's played for England as well, he's probably better in a back five, or in our case, a back three, but a back five. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on there. And then De Ligt, for me, I think, to be honest, De Ligt, I would say that he has played most, if not all, of his career, apart from at Manchester United in this current moment in time, in a back four. So I would say that that's fine for De Ligt. He's quicker than Maguire, and I think, like I say, he's used to a back four for me. So that shouldn't be a problem. But it's going to be interesting. But again, everybody watching, what are you thinking about this tweak of formation? Are you bothered that Amorim said he'd never change his formation, he'd never change his system, even if the Pope asked him to, he'd say no? Are you happy that he's gone against that? Or are you a bit like me, where I don't mind that if he understands he's got it wrong and decides to change it and isn't stubborn forever and changes it and we start to get results from it? I personally don't mind that. So what do you guys think? But I personally don't mind that. Like I say, you can stick with your principles, you can stick stubborn and then not win any games and lose your job, or you can actually change a little bit, even if it's just for a short period of time, you can change a little bit. But what's been interesting, if you've seen his press conference more recently, he has said, which we all knew, and which is very strange. So we've got Omar Barada from City, meant to be a football man, very intelligent, don't get me wrong, but he's rubbed shoulders with all the people that make good decisions at City. You've got Jason Wilcox, sporting director, used to play for Blackburn, a winger, so he's a footballer, so he should know football. And they've brought in Amorim. They know that he plays a 3-4-3. And for some reason, nobody's told them that he will need players to play that system. Now, what does that mean? If you need players to play a system, you don't get them for free, you've got to buy them. So initially, before this summer, when you've pretty much just given him Dorgu, who, to be fair to him, is young still and isn't particularly a wing back per se, although today he looked like a winger, it's not enough and it's not right. And I think when you have such a different system that Amorim has, you've got to back him. And I've been saying this for a while. You've got to back him, and you've got to back him in so many ways. So you've got to back him financially, but you've also got to back him where you've got to get rid of players that's not suited to the system as well. And you've also got to give him confidence, and make sure that these players, entitled players as he calls them, aren't getting the better of the coach, because that's what's been happening over the years. The players have been in charge of this club, and they've been in charge of this club way too long, and things need to change. So, getting a comment there, is that a new top? It is a new top, and it's good to be wearing that today. And this is actually, I don't know what people think that are watching, but this is my favourite one of the kits this season. For some reason, the best kits are always like the third kit, and this is the third kit I think it's classed as, because I think the white one's the second kit. You've always got to love the red top, the red jersey, because that's the first kit, and it's all about red, and we are Reds. But I do like this one; it's a bit different, and as you can see, my overlay here is within keeping, so we do like that. So thanks for that, Mazza. So yeah, I'm just going to come on to sort of player ratings, and again, there's a lot of people watching. Interact, guys. Come on, it's a community. Let's hear what you've got to say. Let's not just have a couple of people just saying things. So thanks for that thumbs up as well, Coulter. Thanks for that. So coming on to player ratings then. So for me, there was a few players that have played all right today, to be fair. Again, I do need to sort of look back now that Neville's talked about Heaven. I was a little bit shocked when he said it at first. Not to say that Heaven didn't play well. I just didn't. Sometimes, if you don't notice that a player's played well, that's not a bad thing. 'Cause it just means that they've just, got through the game, done all the right things. Nothing too fancy. Not that a centre back generally is fancy, but and if that is the case and he's played that well, then I'm happy about that because we are thin on the ground when it comes to numbers across the board, to be fair. So not just in attack, it's defence as well. And losing you two, for me, our two key centre backs, if we are playing in that 3-4-3 system. And even if we're not, we still need that experience at the back. So it's good if he has played well. But let's get into it then. In terms of man of the match for me, then, I've got to say, and please put your comments in as well, I've got to say it's Dorgu for me. And I am open to challenge on that, but for me, I just felt not so much, although I do think he played all right in the second half as well, but mainly for the first half, and it ain't just about the goal either. I think that just topped it off. I think he showed loads of intent in that first half, and what I like to see, because again, watching the game, father-in-law to be, and we're talking about this. I like to see when a player has had something said against them. So, like Amarim said, he feels that he's nervous on the ball and all that sort of thing. What I like is that you come back and say you're wrong, or you come back and say I'm going to show you, and that's what I want from this team. I want a team of I'm going to show you. So if it's the coach that's saying something, if you want to call it negative, or if it's an ex-player saying something, I want you to say, I'm going to shut you up. I'm going to show you in performances. And that's what I want to see. And I think we all want to see that. So for me, I think first half showed loads of intent, demonstrated his pace. He was attacking. He was relentless. He was pressing. There was times he was in doing his usual defensive work. So that's one good thing about him anyway, is that if he's going to place that high and that attacking, he's going to get back as well. Because one thing I've never said against Dorgu, or I'll never not say about Dorgu, is even when I think he's played shit, I would say you can't fault his energy, you can't fault his tenacity, you can't fault the fact that he's up and down. And that was one thing I was happy about when he first came in, is that up and down nature. Because if you are going to be a wing back, you need to get up and down, up and down. It needs a lot of energy. So yes, again, don't leave it just to Mazza, guys. But agrees that Dorgu definitely gets their vote, so that's good. And that's what I am definitely saying. So, yep, Dorgu definitely played well for me. Like I say, got up and down. He was trying to create chances. He was taking shots. And then, obviously, the icing on the cake for me, or the cherry on top of the cake, was the volley. And the fact that he, for someone that's not had a lot of confidence recently, ball's quite high up in the air, and he's watching it the whole time, and he's shown good level of technique there. So I can only assume he's been practicing a bit of shooting and what have you. But no, I mean, there's not, to be honest, and it shouldn't be this case, but there's not a lot of players, I don't feel, in this team that could have scored in that manner, because he hasn't thrashed at it, which, again, that was something I was saying during the match, is that a lot of players thrash at a ball, especially when it's there open for a volley. People just thrash at it, and I felt he was really composed. He was watching it the whole time. His eyes were just on the ball, and all he was thinking is, I'm going to get this on target. And you can't fault that, especially when you're a defender. I'm going to get this on target and using my stronger foot, and it was well hit, well struck. Debatable whether Ramsdale could have saved it, but I think it had enough power. They were also saying that they felt that Cunha was offside and may have been blocking his vision. But I think when you watch the angle from behind the net, I think for me you can tell that he wasn't in his line of vision. I think he probably did see it a little bit late, but I don't feel that he blocked off his vision. So I don't buy that. So obviously that were just things that were being said at the time, but I don't buy that. I think they probably did look at it, VAR, but they've obviously said it wasn't an obstruction or anything like that. So the goal stood, which is good, obviously. So in terms of what I like to do as well is strong performers. So I'm just going to give a couple. Now, one of them's not particularly from what I've said, so we'll start, and it's probably obvious. Strong performer, Heaven, and that's purely from the commentators, because as much as what I did see that Heaven seemed to be marshalling the box well and defending well, but in terms of whether he was man of the match criteria, I can only leave that with Gary Neville. Another strong performer, especially in the second half, and I have been a critic of him, and it's only because I want better, and I have to remember that it's just first season, and it's always tough for a player in this position. Le Mans. Now, Le Mans, I feel, and obviously he's got a clean sheet as well, so that's enough to give an indication of that he's played well. Although I never just give a clean sheet just to a keeper unless it's been an absolute onslaught. Defence is a part of that as well. I think he had a strong performance, Le Mans. I think there's, again, some of this stuff, it's very difficult because you probably know it yourselves, and I get drawn into this where you see a player. So after you've suffered, and I'm telling you, we've suffered greatly watching Onana. I never want to see that guy again in a Manchester United shirt. But let's remember, we haven't sold Onana. He's on loan. So that twat could be coming back. But anyway, we've suffered a lot with Onana. And then Bayender, I had a bit of hope for him at first, but we suffered with him as well. Now, these two idiots can't catch a ball. Or it's very rare that they catch a ball. And I don't want to go over the top that a keeper catches a ball, but when you've watched them two idiots for such a long time, fucking about with a ball, pissing around, it's nice to see a goalkeeper that just does the simple things well. And it's a great start to do the simple things well. So one of the things is, I know he slightly messed up afterwards, but there's a ball that's come into the box, crowded, and he's got up really strong, really high, and he's just grabbed the ball. He's went for a catch. Now, some keepers, and even the good keepers, like maybe even an Alisson for Liverpool, would have punched the ball. Now, if you punch it clear and you get some distance on it, it's fine. But I think at that time in the game, in the second half, when we were under the cosh, the right decision to make, and which is sort of strange for his age, because he's still a young keeper, is gone up confidently and caught the ball. And again, for those of you that are in watching tonight that have played football, and I don't want to sort of disregard anybody else, but what I mean by this is that if you play in defence, which I have, and your keeper does that, so even if you get an elbow or a knee in your head, you'll take that if it's the keeper that's done it because he's caught the ball. And to go further into this is it gives so much confidence to the defence. And it also means that you take the sting out of the game a little bit and you can waste a little bit of time. And that all of that is precious where you're stopping Newcastle's momentum. And that's really important to do that, because if you punch it and it just comes back, so you watch the game. We got on the ball at times and we were trying to get out of our half, and I can't even remember, maybe twice. But other than that, I don't think we got out of our half more than twice, or not for a sustained period where we could actually mount an attack. So if he punches the ball in those circumstances, especially when you're under pressure, then the ball's just coming back again. It's coming back again. If you catch it like you did, and you do what those goalkeepers normally do, they normally catch the ball and then they go down to the ground, don't they, and lie on the ball for a little bit. And you might wonder why they do that, but again, it sort of slows things down a little bit. It allows everybody to take a breather. It allows everybody to reset again. And then he can then kick the ball out of his hands or throw it out, whatever it may be, and let everybody set again. So for me, that's underrated, that type of thing. And he was doing that a lot in that second half, where he was catching it, where a lot of keepers would punch. There was a point where I think even Neville sort of brought it up and said, oh, he's made a mistake there. It sort of flicked off him. But when you saw the replay, you could see there was a nudge in his back. But again, he was there to catch the ball. He was there in the right place. Don't want to say too much today because he's had a good game and we've got a clean sheet. But the only thing for me is, again, and I want to see this in his second season, is positioning. So something has to happen with these goalkeeper coaches. Now, I don't know what his name is. And I'm not saying that the goalkeeper coach when Ten Hag was here was brilliant, but that little guy who can barely walk is our goalkeeper coach. Now, he might be the best ever, I don't know. But I think what Amorim needs to just think about, if that's not the case, is that I know he wants his guys around him, and I get that, and that's where you're most comfortable, but you've got to have the best people at Manchester United. It's not just players, it's staff as well. It's coaches, it's backroom staff, you name it. So if he isn't the best, and he isn't giving the best advice to our goalkeepers, we need to move him on. But anyway, we'll leave it there because, like I say, Le Mans had a good game. Now, underperformers, really sorry, and I don't really want to or like to do it, should I say, but I didn't think Sesko played particularly well today. Of late, and maybe when he first came in, I'm still thinking about his performances in the Bundesliga, and we've probably all seen it. And normally, if you're like me and you know a player's coming in, you start to, and you probably shouldn't do it, but I can't afford Wisecout, so I watch it free on YouTube, and you see all the bangers. You see the long range efforts. You see all the finishes that he does, and there was a famous one where he sort of shot from distance, sort of looped it over the keeper that was advancing, and the ball must have come out to him, and he's looped it over the keeper, and everybody's like, "Ooh, yeah, look at that goal." So you see stuff like that, and you get excited. So I think you sort of want to see a conversion of that in your team, and if you saw that, or if he played like that, it's a completely different Sesko that you've got for Manchester United. So I can only hope that he'll get to that level again. The only thing I'd said though when he was coming in, and again I will cover stats because I like FootMob and I show that on screen, but I don't put everything into stats because certain stats are misleading. Now, one thing I do like sometimes, or where I've sort of judged him before he came in, is that he was outperforming his XG. So basically, he's outperforming his expected goals. And what I mean by that in basic terms, what it was for me, is that when I've mentioned earlier about his scoring screamers and bangers, they're not going to be expected goals. So when they go in, he's going to be outperforming his XG. And I think when you do that, because I'm sure actually Cunha and Mbuma were outperforming their XG last season as well. So when you do that, unless you can keep that up, and I'm saying this about Aston Villa because I was saying, please, Aston Villa, stop this shit. That's got to stop soon because you can't keep winning games with screamers because they're not expected goals. So there's going to be a point where that stops happening. And this is what happens with individuals as well. So not just teams, individuals. So if you're outperforming your XG in a season, I don't know if there's a person that outperforms their XG every single season. I don't know if that's possible. So that's the only downer, is that he's going to have to start scoring the goals or finishing the shots that most strikers would finish. So again, don't want to compare him, but you've got to think about the top strikers. So again, Haaland, I mentioned him before in the last videos. He's going to score the goals he should score, and therefore his XG is going to be quite close to what you expect him to get. So that's what we need from Sesko, really. So I'm not going to discount bangers. If you can give us a banger or two, please do that. It's entertainment. But he needs to start just doing the simple things well for me. So unfortunately, Sesko drops into that underperformer today. I'm going to put Xerxes in there as well because I wasn't particularly impressed with him when he came onto the field. Obviously, he's come on to sort of replace Sesko, and he just didn't hold up the ball at all for me. Wasn't strong enough. I saw him tussling a couple of times. It might have been with Shah. Shah's experienced, but he was just throwing him around. And for me, Xerxes is not a small guy. He's got a frame to him. He's got a size to him. So again, this is what I'm talking about. You can be the biggest person ever, and even the strongest person ever, but if you're not using that strength and the size to your advantage, it don't mean anything. And I think he just needs to start to learn that, because I said it before, there can be plenty of those good strikers out there that aren't particularly playing well, but one thing they will give you, even when they're not playing well, is that hold up play, for example. So they might think, right, my touch is a little bit off today, or whatever, or what have you. I'm not finishing well today, but one thing I'm going to do is stand up tall, take the ball on my chest, or flick the ball on to someone else that's on form. And I think you've got to give that at the bare minimum. So that's all I ask from your Zirks and your Seskos. And to be fair to Sesko, although he didn't play particularly well today, I still felt he was holding up the ball pretty well. Yeah, another comment there as well. It was great to see passion from Dorgu in this game. So yeah, so I think, to be honest, I'm not saying that he particularly lacks passion, but I just think overall, I think he sort of gave everything overall in this game, and I just want to see more of it, because I haven't watched full games when he's playing for. I always get it mixed up. I'm sure it's Denmark. I'm sure it is, but when he's playing for his national team. However, when I see highlights, it looks like he's up and down. He's up and down. He's creating chances, and he's scoring goals at times as well. I'm not saying he scored loads, but he's scoring goals. So I think the confidence levels are much higher when he's playing for Denmark. So we just need to see that convert to ourselves. So not really going to do, because normally I'd go on to doing a bit of a tactical breakdown. So I'm not really going to bother with that, because I just felt like the second half was just a disarray. But like I say, first half, pleasant experience, or surprised to see that there was more of a sort of 4-3-3 sort of formation. And I've said it earlier, you've got the flat back four, Shaw going back to his old days of a left back, and then you've got Dalot at right back, and then Dorgu playing quite advanced, like on the wing. It's kind of lopsided a little bit, because it did feel like it was heavily weighted on that side in terms of creativity and going forward. Looked like Cunha sort of come in a little bit, as I was saying earlier, and Mount sort of pressing from the middle. So that was sort of the setup in the first half. I think it worked, and it led to what I was calling the cheating, with Eddie Howe putting instructions onto the field. And again, got a few people watching what you're saying, because it'll be coming to an end soon, the video. I know it's late, but anyway, you'll catch us on the next one. So yeah, that was sort of the setup. We were pressing well in that first half. We won the ball back quite high up at times as well, and that sort of led to a couple of chances. So that was all good. We had a couple of set pieces here and there, but in that second half, it felt like we went from a back four to a back 10, and there was so many corners. I mean, I didn't see the number in the end, but it just felt like there was loads of corners for Newcastle. And I must admit, I was sat there, and what Fergie would have said, squeaky bum time, sat there uncomfortable thinking, oh no, they're going to score here, because we're not that great at defending that intensely. I think we're generally okay for a period, but then I don't think I can remember a game more recently where there was that much corners coming in and shots at goal and what have you. So I think it was partially, if you want to call it luck, partially that Newcastle went at the races per se, and then partially good defending as well, which was credited from Neville to heaven. So that was that in terms of tactical breakdown. In regards to what the result means, obviously we've looked at the table there. We're in 5th spot at the minute because we've played one extra game. Obviously things may change over the weekend. Hopefully there'll be an upset and Wolves might find a bit of form, although we don't want them to do that because Wolves is our next game, so hold off on that form. But you never know. Liverpool could get cocky, and who knows. It was interesting actually, because when Wolves played Arsenal, and obviously Arsenal being top of the league, Arsenal I would say Wolves won that game for Arsenal because it were 2 own goals, and it didn't seem like Arsenal played particularly well. And they probably looked at our game because it was us who played them before then. It was 4-1, and they probably thought, oh yeah, if Man United could beat them 4-1, we'll batter them 10-0 or something. So I think they were probably overconfident, and Wolves probably set up quite defensively, which they probably need to do when they play us next. But anyway, I'm just looking for those 3 points. So in terms of going forward, I think again we're in touching distance of getting that sort of top 5. Very sad for a team like Manchester United to be hoping and wishing for top 5, top 4, and obviously again, gone are those days at the moment where we're always pushing for first spot and at worst getting second. So for now, where we're at, it's all about building. And I think if we can get into that European stage, then that's going to give us a better chance of getting the players that we want. And we're not falling down the pecking order because, as I've said in previous videos, we've lost out on Semenyo, which, again, I'm not saying it's the player that we should have been going for. And again, put your comments below if you are gutted that we've missed out on Semenyo, but not so sure that we needed an attacking player right now. We need to sort out that midfield and get some control in there. And obviously, really quickly, because I know we're coming to an end and it's getting late, is that when Martinez was playing against Villa in central midfield, just showing us a different side to that midfield that we haven't seen in a long time, in the sense of just slowing things down, doing things simple, getting things ticking over, and I think our midfield was productive in that sense. Don't get me wrong, even like today, I would say we missed out on Bruno's attacking abilities and chance creation. However, we've got through it, so it's on to the next one. So one thing I will credit the team, as much as it was embarrassing in that second half, is that there was a strong determination to win that game. And there's times where you might feel that players are not playing for a coach, and we might have even said that these players are not playing for Amorim at times, but I don't think we can say that tonight. I think as much as it was quite poor at times in the second half and we hardly got out of our half, it was embarrassing. I think we dug in, we were determined. It was that thou shalt not pass when it came to defence and goalkeeper Le Mans, and he's a lot to thank for that. So I think that's good that we had that determination to win. So I can't sort of take that away from him. So as always, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button because it's really important to new channels such as this. We want to keep going. We want to do more. Obviously, we're going live now. We want your interactions. We've had quite a few messages, chats tonight, which is good. Let's keep that going. Let's keep the conversation going. Again, don't just want to be talking and that's it. I want you to interact so we can have a conversation, have that feel of a two-way thing. So, as always, please subscribe, please like, please share, and I will see you on the next one.